Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Six Pixels Under podcast. I am NS, your host. You can see my puppy Hermes is. Well, I guess he just evolved to his like young adult phase. So he's not puppy; he's young adult. But you can see he's joined us for the podcast. um, but yeah, I'm NS, Justin, Nerd Slayer, whatever you prefer to call me. I've had many different monikers and I guess identities online, spanning back, decades, which it always felt funny, like thinking about the day that I would end up being able to say decades. And then you realize, like, it's not really, you're not going to celebrate it. You're just going to be like, damn, that sucked. No, I'm just kidding. No, more like you acknowledge it's been a lot of time. Let me see if I can raise this up a little bit. I guess I can't. Rip. Um, but yeah, how's everyone doing? W Texans fan. Your Astro fellow? Well, that would make sense if that's referring to the Astros team. I'm gonna have to kill your dreams though. I'm not actually a fan. I'm born and raised in Houston, but I'm not really a fan. And you're gonna laugh, but I jumped off the bandwagon when we picked up a defensive player for our like number 2 or 3 pick or some shit like that. And that was like 15 years ago. So that was a long time ago. But yeah, it was like, I think like 2010, 2009, somewhere around there in the draft. We picked up a defensive player who ended up kind of largely being a flop, but it was just like so strange because we had just lost and we're starting to lose our star receiver, Andre Johnson, at the time. And we needed someone to replace him. We also needed a quarterback. We didn't get either of those things. So we ended up being the team that was known for great defense for many years without ever actually being competitive in any serious sense, especially past the conferences. Um, but yeah. My bad. To be fair, though, I'm the kind of person, maybe it's the autism, I don't know. But like, I like to largely spend the majority of my time consuming things that I'm doing. Now, obviously, there's going to be some exceptions. For example, sometimes I really like to watch things because I don't do them at all. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're watching like blowing. Anybody else watch glass blowing? I watch it sometimes and I'm just like blown away. I'm like, sorry, that was not intentional. No pun intended. But yeah, I'm just like, man, this is crazy. But I'll never be a glass blower. I just don't like the idea of even being burned just a little bit. So I'm cool with the glass blowing. Um, and then what else? Lots of cooking things. Now, obviously, I will attempt and do some of those cooking, but I'm not gonna attempt everything that I ever watch. So, but the majority of activities that I engage in, I like to watch things that I do. So, because I don't play that much basketball or American football anymore, I don't watch them that much. I mainly watch them with family or friends. I'm the kind of person that because I played so much of it growing up and watched, I can watch it if it comes on, but I don't go out of my way to consume it. Um, is usually the thingy. But yeah, this podcast I didn't want it to be too long because I'm actually currently writing Destiny right now, and it's been a pretty interesting story. Let me move my camera real quick. Yeah, so the shot doesn't look so like drawn out, and I can actually sit up straight, or at least as much as a gamer like me sits up straight. Um, so yeah, I've actually been researching Destiny right now, and one of the points I wanted to make about Destiny before I moved on, um, well, I actually have 2 points about 2 major game series that I wanted to comment about, but starting with Diablo. So growing up, people always told me that Diablo 2 is the de facto best Diablo. Even after 3 came out, people kept telling me, no, dude, you gotta play 2, you gotta play 2. And growing up, I just somehow ended up skipping 2 because I ended up playing another Korean online game that was called Dark Eden. That was pretty much like a clone in many ways, but it had more interesting classes and abilities. And so I would play that like religiously and never really played 2. I went back recently and played it. And I'm somebody that actually enjoys playing classic games, so I don't typically care if they're old. But I came back and I was playing 2, and I was just like, this is a proc gen world. Like, it's crazy as much praise as the game's gotten. No one's ever told me that it has a proc generated world, like 90% of the time. And it's like, I fucking hate proc generated worlds, except if I'm playing like a survival game or something in which I'm like crafting or manipulating the actual like world with tools or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, when I started running around and I logged back in and I realized that the map had changed, I was like, I fucking hate this shit. So yeah, I have been enjoying playing Diablo 2 in many ways, seeing what made it what it was, and it has good progression, good looting, and stuff like that, especially compared to 4. Um, but the combat's, you know, what it was. The story's almost non-existent, and the proc gen stuff totally just ruins my immersion when I'm playing. Because there was one time I had my internet DC, so I got kicked out of my game. I hopped back in, and because I'm playing online, I guess my characters are online. I guess like maybe this could be fixed if I made an offline character. To be fair, I'm not sure, but I had an online character, and so I reconnected to the server, and the whole map was different. And I was just like, "What? This is how the game functions? I hate this shit." Um, so I wanted to get that out of the way. So I know that's a controversial subject for some. Everyone always tells me Diablo 2 is the best Diablo. Look, guys, I'm not gonna lie. I started playing Diablo 4 recently with the recent changes, especially like choosing your difficulty level and stuff. I think Diablo 4 is better than Diablo 2 and 3. What's up, Mario? Wee Luigi. Howdy. 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 But yeah, like just I think Diablo 4 got a lot of like warranted hate, but I think after many of its changes in its recent expansion, I think the game has improved a lot. And I don't think a lot of people have talked about that. So I don't know. I thought I'd mention that. Might surprise people. But yeah, I've been enjoying playing Diablo 4 recently. Um I'm playing on like I think Inferno or whatever. And I'm playing with my best friend who is pretty casual with games overall, but is like a really good MOBA player. So games like Diablo and action RPGs are honestly really easy for him. And I asked him, I was like, "Wait, like, do you like Diablo?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, then if you like it or it seems interesting to you, you should try it because you're a MOBA player, so you have the skill." And obviously, he's been doing great. So I've been enjoying Diablo 4. Beside that, what else have I been playing? Um, Occasionally I'll play campaign in StarCraft 2. Um, Recently I was playing some of that. Oh, I play a lot of ARAM, League of Legends ARAM Mayhem. It's just it's really relaxing for me. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair, Lil Crevo. I agree with you. I agree that if you don't end up getting the expansion, you are playing a pretty subpar game by comparison. And to be fair, that's kind of like ironically what we're going to talk about with Monster Hunter as a series in the past 3 games, really, is that like we've kind of letting like studios and companies get away with just releasing subpar games and just promising that everything is going to be fixed in the expansion. Nobody necessarily promised that with D4, but it kind of ended up happening. And so now if you don't have the expansion, you're just not going to enjoy the game as much. Um yeah, no, I'm being serious. I really if you guys can play or buy it on Humble Bundle or access it with your Game Pass like I have, I recommend playing Diablo 4. It is the most ORPG like of the Diablos, and part of that is by its design. It, it has an always online functionality, which essentially means that like there's no way for you to like go offline and separate from the online world in that game. For some people, that's all that constitutes what is an ORPG or an online RPG, but it's actually not necessarily true. Phantasy Star Online, the essentially like founding father of the ORPG genre, was a game that didn't function that way either, right? Like starting as far back as I guess it's 90. Is it 2000? My fucking dates are horrible. Um, every time I type in PSO1, you guys want to know what comes up? The fucking scope from Stalker. And I don't even play Stalker that much. So yeah, I'm not sure why that's always in my search history. 2002. Might be. No, wait, 2002 is the expansion. Or the re-release. Right? No, no, no. The re-release is in 2003. 2003 is when I played the game. That's why I was asking about the re-release. This is how the re-release looks. Oh shit. Whoops. Um, fuck, I did it again. This one. This was the re-release box art. This is the one that I played as a kid. This one came out in 2003. But yeah, essentially like it even advertises it here on the box. See, it says great offline split screen action for up to 4 players. So essentially like the creator of ORPGs, I mean pretty much globally, and the reason why I struggle to say globally is that it's more complicated than that. Like oh shit. For example, it's more complicated than that because at the time when Phantasy Star was being developed, the whole idea behind it was no, Phantasy Star is a really cool franchise. It's not just Phantasy Star Online, it's Phantasy Star. It's actually one of the older franchises in Japan and one of the oldest RPG franchises in general. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know about that stuff. Bogus Meat Factory on our Discord knows about Phantasy Star as an actual like RPG, so you can talk to him about it if you want. I'm the Phantasy Star Online post guy, so anything after 2002 or whatever is when I started, being introduced to Phantasy Star. But essentially, like the idea behind Phantasy Star Online, if you haven't seen that video or you're not aware, was that they wanted to make an MMO, but they just couldn't. Right? They didn't have the technology. They didn't have the capability. It's more like I'm in the middle of something. Destroyer Arch or DA. But anyway. And so what ended up happening is they had to make some compromises. Some of those compromises involved creating like server architecture in a way that allowed them to play essentially like what would be like peer to peer, right? Which would essentially kind of like is like the first inclinations of what would eventually become Guild Wars' one in their channel system. So it's like the earliest renditions of that. And even like the earliest renditions of phasing, technically, if you want to like take it there. So they didn't have like just one world or one server in Phantasy Star. It was a bunch of servers that were based on whoever you were peer-to-peer connected to, right? And so that was really relevant because the games they were trying to mimic at the time were Ultima Online, and they were trying to mimic most importantly Diablo. They, Yuji Naka, obviously Sonic fame, and that recent game that everyone hates, Balatrum or whatever it's called. But also he was behind Phantasy Star Online and a super pioneer in Japan. And he loved Diablo, right? So he wanted to make a Diablo game. And so that's what he did, right? He essentially turned PSO, or Phantasy Star Online, into a Diablo-like. The problem is that at the time, not only was nobody doing that on console, they were the first of their kind, literally, to do it on console. And if you're wondering why, the reason being is Balatro at home. Yeah, I don't remember what that shit was called, but it's something with a B, I thought. I'm sure somebody in chat knows it, because it's like a meme game, but hey Nerd Slayer guy, thanks for the videos. Thanks. Or You welcome, I guess. Wait, do you thank people when they thank you? Because I feel like that's normal to thank somebody when they thank you. But I don't know if that also sounds too autistic. Um, yeah, the Sega Genesis had the RPGs, and I also think in fuck Sega Genesis and what's the other one? Damn it, I'm blinking right now. It's probably all the writing I've been doing. It's like that other console that sounds really strange and nobody ever remembers it. Fuck, I can't remember that thing. I remember it by its ROM files. Its ROM files were like ms dot something files or whatever. I don't know if there's anyone here old enough to know what that was, but anyway, that was the other console. Thank you for the support. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty true. But when I'm talking to somebody, it sounds a little bit stranger, like having an actual conversation with somebody. Um, but let's finish the storytelling. So the so Fantasy Star Online had essentially kind of knowingly and unknowingly walked into like a pioneer situation where although they were very much, if you want to say harshly, a copy of Diablo, they were a unique copy, right? They had a different structure. They had this idea that was, still based the whole hub zone, go to a hub zone, meet other players, go adventure with other players, right? That concept was the same. The difference was is that they didn't have to rely on any type of dedicated servers like, the future Diablo games would. Um, and like Diablo 1 did, they just relied on peer to peer, which was just connections amongst players, where one of the players would host the server essentially. And so, like, again, the architectures of these games pretty much exactly the same. The reason why the market genre, I guess, like shifted when Eastern games got popular doing what Western games were doing, I guess you would say, is that the Western market is a different market, right? When you think Western market, think ARPGs. When you think Eastern market, you think ORPGs. And oftentimes you will still hear Japanese players and people say, hey, this is an action RPG. But one of the most common genre monikers in that market is ORPG. And that's because Phantasy Star first called themselves an ORPG. They said, hey, we're an ORPG. What does that necessarily mean? Well, so the reasoning behind Yuji Naka calling it an ORPG and not an MMORPG was obviously the game wasn't massive, right? There wasn't a dedicated server. And also you could only play with up to 3 other players. So 4 players. Well, Hub Zones I think had like 15 players or something like that. Or like I think it increased later on, but Hub Zones had like almost 16 players or something like that. But the general party was just 4 players. Classic ORPGs in Japan. Dragon Quest, Fantasy Star, Monster Hunter. Am I missing any, guys? Any of the otakus I have in chat? No, I think those are the main ones, right? I mean, this is more of a technical argument, but you can argue Final Fantasy 14, right? But let's, for the sake of this discussion, let's keep it just about the ORPGs that get called ORPGs, right? Online RPGs. So, online RPG is what Japanese developers typically end up calling their game, or their market refers to as their games. Now, something that I thought was kind of interesting and makes me also realize sometimes either how poor of a job I do at explaining certain topics, or just I make too many assumptions into assuming that people already know certain things, or both. Which is, when you're a content creator, sometimes you get stuck into whatever level you're at or particular area you're researching at, and the autism strikes, and not everyone's going to be thinking about it in the same way as you or know as much about the history. But something that I found that was really interesting about the Monster Hunter video, Monster Hunter Wilds, was I just put out like a couple of days ago, I think like 4 days ago, maybe 5, is that there was a lot of pushback on 2 to 3 things in particular. And I want to cover those things because I think that these things actually show a complete misunderstanding of the genre and the markets. And I find them really interesting. And so let's start with the concept of what kind of game is Monster Hunter, right? So people will say, well, it's an offline game. How could an offline game die? I mean, well, first let me say they did a great job if they were able to convince you that it was an offline game, because that means that their design worked. They designed the game just how they wanted to design it, in which a player like you would think that the game was an offline game. But like, I guess I'm gonna have to like tell you that Santa doesn't exist for a second, and I hate doing this sometimes because peeling the layers back from these online RPGs sometimes can, I don't want to say they cheapen the experience, but they just make you understand things sometimes more, and then maybe you, I guess, will just have like a higher standard from it. But to put simply, the reason that a game like Monster Hunter or Phantasy Star Online aren't just offline RPGs or single player RPGs is because almost the entirety of the game is built on the framework of a multiplayer game. Like, just think about it logically for a second. If 2 missions in, you can already unlock online mode in your game, which means everything past that point can be played online. Is your game an offline game because it can be played offline? Or is it an online game because it's actually built to be an online game? Do you see what I'm saying? So you can play Phantasy Star Online or Monster Hunter and play them offline. In fact, I would argue that the newest Monster Hunter is the easiest one to play offline, right? By far. See, look, there's people in chat already misunderstanding a very simple topic. And I'm walking through it like really slowly, and there's already people misunderstanding what I'm saying. You guys are talking about your personal experience. I'm talking about game development, how the game's designed. If a game is designed with an offline mode built in, with the online mode layered over it, it's not an offline game. It can be played offline, but it wasn't designed as an offline game. Because how could they make it suddenly online? It's not as simple as just flipping a switch. They have to build the entire framework of the game to be online, meaning that when they start coding from day one, right? From literally day one, they're already making it online and thinking about how they're going to make it online. Because making a game single player, then making it online is something that only a few games have ever done. It's so unbelievably rare, it's unheard of. Stardew Valley is the most famous example I can think of, a game that sold 35 to 40 million copies. In order for Concerned Ape, who was largely a single developer, in order for him to make it, he had to go get a sponsor. And with that sponsor, he had to then help them, or he had to ask for development help for them to dedicate resources to literally remaking his game. He had to remake his game. You see what I'm saying? Because it wasn't as simple as just, oh, well, Stardew Valley, well, it's online now. Shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, he had to remake the game. Like Concerned Ape has an entire section on his website dedicated to his, like, you know, his blogging about his development, I guess. Or do people still call it blogging or journaling? I guess he like journals or whatever. And he talks about it. He said, like, I basically had to remake the game. So like, that's my legit most recent example that I can think of a game that retroactively made itself multiplayer, and he had to rebuild the entire game to do it. So meaning that not a single Monster Hunter game has ever just been built as an offline game. They were built as online games that could go offline, just like Phantasy Star Online. That's why these are called online RPGs. It's actually not even that complicated of a subject. The reason why people struggle with it, I think, is because they, as Westerners typically, because that's where the majority of my audience comes from. Thank you for the support. But it's because they don't understand that the Eastern market functions differently. Literally, they're interested in different things. Their games function differently. They're not looking at the same type of like feature sets that you're interested in as a Westerner. That's just historically been the case. It's like there was a top most played like data sheet that came out a couple years ago, and well, maybe it was a year ago, and it showed that like sports game gamers make up mass amounts of the Western audience. And what was surprising about that was nothing at all. But it was surprising to like the super turbo elite gamers who were like, wait, what the fuck? This that's not a real game. That's not real gaming. And this created the meme, the ball and gun gamer meme. If you've heard about this meme, the ball and gun gamer meme, it's essentially the meme that Westerners only care about games if it has balls in it or guns. And while that's largely the case, um, it well, I mean, definitely ball and gun gamers are it's a bit of a rant subject, but the reason why it's relevant is because it shows you kind of like our misunderstanding and how many gamers online, including me for most of my gaming career, we live in a bubble. We think that everyone's playing the same things we are and seeing the games the same way that we're seeing them. Right? It's like when MMO players say, "Oh, well, our genre is massive." And I respond with, "Okay, what does that mean exactly?" Well, it means like a massive amount of players are playing. Okay, well that makes sense. But does it mean that it's sold a massive amount of copies? Because we only have like 6 games that ever did that. Like our genre is minuscule compared to other gaming genres. And that's like an ironic thing because we have massive in the fucking genre. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we should be bigger or whatever. Des, like you need to relax. Like, yeah, you're going like crazy over something that I was literally just joking about, which was just how did Destiny manage to gain such a large fan base off of only putting out 2 out of 10 good expansions? That was it. Relax. Like you're taking it like way too like, excitingly for some reason. I have to disagree with that take. IMO, it's an offline game first. It doesn't. To be clear, I don't care what your opinion is about it because it's not designed that way. Like, we're not talking about opinion. We're talking about how the game's developed and designed. Like, and as somebody who's not a very good coder myself, the first thing I ever encountered when trying to go online with a project was, wait a minute, I have to build this into the game. Like, meaning this has to be built in from the foundation up. I can't just go online right here. Maybe if I have like just group finding matchmaking systems that, like a shooter or something like that, maybe I can get away with that. Or maybe a shooter in which I have my multiplayer completely separate from my campaign. But in Monster Hunter, not a single Monster Hunter is completely separate from the campaign, which means that it's designed as an online game. Literally designed as an online game. You can tell me you don't play it that way. What the fuck does it matter? I'm happy for you if you like it as a solo player. It did a great. I played PSO1 the first time all the way through by myself because I couldn't afford Xbox Live, so the only way I could play was with my friends. So you bet your damn ass I played it by myself. Was that optimal? I don't give a fuck because I had a good time. But is that how the game was designed? Because I enjoyed it that way? But that doesn't even make any sense. Like, what does design have to do with the fact that I enjoyed it offline? They still built it for an online game. Like, that's not a opinion thing. That's literally how design works. I mean, we can bring developers on stream and they can tell you about the stuff that I'm saying, and they're gonna sound like they're saying the same stuff because it's not really that. In fact, I would even be surprised that this stuff is like hidden information at this point. To make a game online layered over a campaign, it's not as simple as just making another mode separate from the campaign. No, it has to be built into the foundation of the game. So it was designed as an online game. Like, yeah, but that's just how I feel about a Destroyer Archer. Wait, how is responding to what people are saying or talking about ideas that I feel strongly about being a hostile streamer? Thirdly, if that's your kind of perspective, I think you should probably leave because you'll find that I'm very hostile because I care about things and I like to talk about them. Like, hostile? It's just weird when I hear people say stuff like fighting for his life or hostility and we're online talking. Like, like I do martial arts almost every day. There's nothing hostile about this. Is it confrontational? I'm sure maybe you feel that way in your heart, but hostile? It's like such a strange rendition. Wait, Heracles, could you fix my quote on this? Because I think I understand what you're saying, but I'm misinterpreting how you said it. You said these aren't forced multiplayer mechanics for regular hunts, but for big, large hunts like Morons. Okay. Gogmasios or Lao Shan, you're at a detriment if you're not going with a group. Can you specify which version or which game versions you're talking about onward? Because obviously some of these characters were re-released. or monsters, I should say. Developing a game with multiplayer in mind is different from building a game around multiplayer. No, it's not. Not in the case of how Monster Hunter is designed. How Phantasy Star and Monster Hunter are designed is the entire campaign past like maybe one or two missions is overlaid with the multiplayer, which means it's built foundationally as a multiplayer game. Like, I know I might be hurting feelings saying this stuff because you guys maybe don't know that that's how design works, but you can ask any single developer who works in online RPGs or MMORPGs. There's no way they can debate what I'm saying. These aren't separate modes. It's overlaid into the infrastructure of the game, meaning they built it that way. Like it's kind of it's the same thing with like Destiny. People think that like even if Destiny wasn't online only, which I think the second game is, right? It was still built as an online game. And they even talked about that when designing the game, that it had to be built as an online game. It's not like Mass Effect that suddenly tacked on multiplayer. Like, that's not at all how it's like, actually. Well, there's circumstances in my life, but yes. Destiny mostly coasted off being one of the few live services FPS loot shoots. That's actually something that I was talking to Card about. With high production values, I think is what you're saying, and good gun feeling, right? And that's my thoughts on Destiny. Just that a bunch of things happened that made me go a bit insane, not gonna lie. You're good. I'm just letting you know, like, I was just joking. Like, I was just gonna make a Destiny meme, but I wanted to wait till stream because I wanted to see how other people felt about it. Because I'm obviously writing Destiny right now, but it's just crazy that Destiny 2 has like 10 expansions, and only 2 of them are considered good. And it's like, the way the series is talked about, you would think they don't miss, right? Or they hardly miss. But having a 20% success rate on your expansions is like, this audience has been getting milked. And yeah, I mean, obviously, Destiny players going to enjoy the game. If they enjoyed it, who cares what I feel about, right? Like, emotionally or consumer protection wise. But I just can't help but feel like the Destiny 2 audience, even more than Destiny 1, just got super milked. And anyway, I guess they're still kind of going through that because the game's still not technically dead yet. And obviously, Marathon is still kicking, so they have to deal with that too. But let's pivot off of Destiny because, like I said, I'm writing it right now, so it's all I can fucking think about is fucking Destiny, the final shape, Destiny Shadowkeep, Destiny, the fucking Renegades with the Star Wars characters. God damn. And for you and GU, you're almost practically forced to play with a friend. So you're right. I can back this up. So what Heracles said here is actually right. Like I've been playing through Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate right now, and obviously, I wasn't familiar with this game, so I'm going through and I just was clicking on different monsters on missions, whatever the fuck I could play. And so I'm playing through this arena mission. I didn't know what a fucking arena mission was. That was designed for 2 players. And look, I'm not gonna lie. What's the monster's name, Des? Is it Jagus? Dude, Jagus was beating the shit out of me. Because it forced me to use the great sword, and I was in this like locked in mission where I couldn't change my weapons or some shit like that. And I'm playing through it. I was like, dude, this boss is fucking hard. And I start telling my friends in Discord, Des and Zero, and Zero's like, that's designed for 2 players, right? It's a duo arena. And I was like, oh. So literally, someone like me, who is a rather experienced gamer, went into the game, found essentially a 2-player mode, and was like, "This shit's hard as fuck. What can I even do about this?" And then was told, "Oh yeah, you're supposed to play with another player." It's like, "Oh yeah," because that's what the game is. Fluff Master. Fuck, you got me good. For Thirdly, I can't read your sarcasm, bro. My bad. And also, for if you're wondering, people like Des and other people can say shit because they're in Discord all the time, so we know more of each other's personality. So we know when we're like shit posting with each other or like just saying stupid shit, you know what I'm saying, like or whatever else. But Fluff Master is a longtime viewer, longtime supporter of the channel. They're actually pretty fucking funny. They don't really post that often, but they're remarking about the title, obviously, but not just the title, but just that For some reason, in my comment section, the most angry comments that I got came from anime PFPs. And I have a theory about this, and I might as well lay this out. I have a theory that otakus think they know a lot more about Japanese culture than they do. So anime PFPs oftentimes can be otakus. I know I'm stereotyping. My bad. Maybe there's other types of identities I'm not acknowledging. But let's keep it really like bare bones. And so that they become really like obsessed with like a certain kind of culture. But to the point where sometimes they don't actually like consume the media that they're consuming and understand the culture. So what that means is that if you're not taught the culture from somebody in the culture, you're getting little snips of culture, right? Like I'll give you an example. When I was sitting with one of my English teachers one time waiting to take a test in college, she told me to wait and said that she had to proctor a test for two of her students. But the test was like a vocal test, which was interesting. I wasn't familiar with that. The two students were Chinese exchange students, and they were like top of their class. And she was talking about it. And then what the class was her trying to teach them irony and sarcasm. And I'm not laughing. I'm saying like I was shocked by this because I'm sitting there listening to it because I listened to the whole class. And she would make jokes where she would say, and mind you, this is Chinese culture. Right? I'm not saying it's Japanese culture. And they're both Asians. It's the same. No, I'm making a point here, which is that she starts making a joke. She says, "Oh yeah, you see here, I'm the biggest person in this room." The two girls, brilliant girls, look around the room. Excuse me, professor. I don't think that's true. And they have as serious as a face as I just did. They're like looking at her dead serious. They're like, that's not true. And she's looking at them and she keeps the straight face. And then she smiles and says, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. I'm just kidding. And she starts explaining the concept of humor and sarcasm and how a lot of American humor is exaggerative and you're kind of like saying something for the effect of it, right? It blew my mind. And mind you, I played with Chinese players in Dark Eden all the time. Mind you, they were speaking in English to me, hence the problem. I didn't get to learn their culture. But when I was watching this, I was fascinated by it. I was like, wow, this culture and these girls coming from this culture have no clue about this like stupid sarcasm that like makes up my childhood. You know, like if I started saying some dumb fucking I'm playing WoW jokes and they'd look at me like, what the fuck is he saying? Like, you're not playing WoW or whatever else like. And so that extends, I think, to a lot of otakus. I think they love Japanese media. They don't actually understand the cultures, which is that like this is a largely console-centric market that only recently has kind of started to be like, maybe PC is a bigger deal than we realized, right? And also only has like two recent developers who actually made it global. Like, I know their media is super popular, especially amongst like the diehard gamers and all of us in chat right now, probably. But like, they're a lot more niche than we kind of realize. You see what I'm saying? And that's what I think is so interesting about the Japanese market, specifically with their online games, is that they've never been interested in being massive. Almost not a single one of their games was ever made for a massive audience. There's only one, Shin Megami Tensei Online. And the exception there is they had a Korean company develop it. So I don't really know if it counts, but every Japanese online RPG is an online RPG and not a massive multiplayer online RPG. And like you realize after a while, like me, when you're a detective and you get bored and you start looking this stuff up, you realize like that's not by accident. This is a market who is actively choosing to play this kind of game. And almost every MMO that tries to come to Japan fails. Even Korean ones. Even the most successful Korean ones. And it's kind of like you scratch your head and you're like, aren't they both Asians? Or you know what I'm saying? Like you're like, well, what? How is this not like computing? And you realize that the Korean online market is the MMORPG market. It's not the same market. They're different. They have different interests. They're interested in different games, mostly even different genres. You see what I'm saying? And so like that's kind of my theory. That's why I was making memes about anime PFPs. Is I oftentimes find that they love Japanese media. They don't actually understand the culture of it. And I think that that's a little bit fetishy, isn't he? If you don't actually like acknowledge a culture, isn't that kind of just like fetishizing? Or maybe I'm too sensitive about this shit. Well, regarding an opinion about design, would not really be a relevant opinion. Like, for example, if I were to call up my best friend who's a doctor and start to lecture him on how I think a certain treatment should go, he would mock me on live, like, stream. And he's my best friend, I know. I mean, even me, he would mock me live stream and tell me everything about what I said is wrong and then tell me about the facts of it. The difference is that since I'm a YouTuber and I don't have a degree that says I'm the MMO journalist guy or some shit, like, for someone to trust my relevancy, they have to actually understand my perspective and hear my arguments, know my gaming history, development history, so on and so forth. That takes more time to like get to know somebody or like interface with somebody. I say interface, I know that's like fucking robotic as shit, but I just like that word and I like how it sounds. But what you realize is like design of something is not opinion. So for example, if I say that Jedi Academy was designed as a physics-based action game, I'm not inventing that statement. That's what Raven Software said when they made the game and what they've said in previous interviews and postmortems. They made that game. I'm not saying that. It's not my opinion. Do you see what I'm saying? Do I think they made a good game? Yes, that's my opinion. But did they make a physics-based action game? Yes. Is that my opinion? That should be discussed like, oh yeah, I love the color blue. No, that's the game they made. Why would I, see what I'm saying? So it's like, past a point, you realize I'm not really talking about opinion. You're debating the actual facts of how this game's designed. And it's like, just because you like the game, like me arguing that is not saying the game's worse. So what are you arguing exactly? You're trying to say that it's better because it's not like, or you see what I'm saying? I can't get the arguments because there is no argument. It's just how people feel, and they feel like, well, this is what I think, and then it matches how I feel about it. And so, that's like the person saying, I played it offline. What does that have to do with me talking about how it was designed from the ground up being online focused? Because they have to do that when they're designing an online capable campaign game. Like, I'm not bashing you for playing it offline. I'm telling you that's how they designed it. So that's why it's like, for me to say I don't give a fuck about your opinion, I'm talking about that, right? About everything else, I actually spend hours of my day, which maybe is kind of embarrassing, in my Discord, talking to people about opinions. And feel free to join Discord / Nerdslayer, or discord.gg/Nerdslayer. I spend hours talking to people about their opinions, sometimes even in Discord. In fact, Destroyer Archer, who was, not feeling good, they're like one of my largest sources on Destiny because they're a super hardcore player. My other source is my cousin, another hardcore player. I've outed my sources. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, these are two big sources because they are super hardcore players who, have played essentially everything. I can't just rely on my own opinion. So if you hear me say something like, I think the early Monster Hunter games aren't that positional inclined, I can explain more, which I should have done in the video, of what I meant, which is that if you actually look at the roster of weapons, especially in games like M4 or MH4U, or even like Genesis or Freedom United, is that they have probably half the roster of weapons is spammable. The other half isn't. So what I said is actually technically wrong. That if half the game is positional required, then I'm just using essentially like, that's the problem of using too much of an opinion-based analysis. I can admit that was a fault of mine. I should have couched it more with, hey, I know people disagree with this, but this is how I feel because of the roster of weapons being fairly spammable. If I made those, like, you know what I'm saying, like additions or whatever, I'm sure people wouldn't have that much of an issue with that, because at the end of the day, it is just your opinion. But when you're going from talking about design to then talking about your opinion, it's why in my series, Death of a Game, I try almost never to talk about it from my personal perspective unless you hear me say the words, in my opinion, when I played the game, this was my experience. Because I heavily try to couch all the things I say because I don't want to run into situations like this. The problem is that the Monster Hunter fan base is very varied. So some players might feel like, yeah, it's spammable. It's action combat. It's hack and slash. And others might feel like, bro, have you played the Greatsword? Have you played the fucking Longsword? What are you talking about? And after playing those weapons in MH4U, I think that's a fair opinion. So that's like a thing that I really appreciate the community's feedback on that. Because I think that while, of course, people love to focus on the people that get the angriest in the comment section, I actually had like a lot of like hardcore Monster Hunter fans school me on this video. And I mean that in the most positive way possible, which is that they told me where I had some blind spots. For example, one of them told me, I see where you're coming from with World, but what you didn't acknowledge is it's basically like GTA 5 was for the GTA audience, where it's this very approachable game in the series that gives this idea that the series and franchise is pretty easy. But if it's your first time playing it, it might be pretty fucking hard. You see what I'm saying? If it's your first entry. So World was nobody who's been playing Monster Hunter, nobody's like hardest game. And that was something that I didn't really like make a distinction between. And that guy schooled me on that. He told me, look, I get where you're coming from, which is how you talk to people, by the way. You try to address their arguments first before just sidestepping them. But he said, I get what you're coming from. But the thing is that you're looking at it from a player who only started playing in later renditions and even only started playing in the 2010s. And I was like, fuck, you're right. I wasn't a DS gamer. I wasn't playing all the DS games and had to deal with the controller scheme and the fact that there was performance issues and shit like that, even on the DS. So there's a blind spot there. And that's bound to happen, to be honest, when you cover a pretty big and huge franchise that has fucking dozens and dozens of games in it. I think it has almost 30 games or over. So I can take those L's. Those are two big L's that I'll just happily take, to be honest. But like, for example, you get this comment a lot. The G rank isn't even out. Why make that video? It's explained in the video. So like in the very beginning of the video, I'll spark notes a video that you could just watch at your own pace, which is bizarre that the current state of media consumption is that you have to spark notes an already incredibly small and compacted video that has like 7,000 words compacted into like only 20 minutes or some shit like that. But anyway, I'll humor you, which is that I did it because this is not like any of the previous Monster Hunter games. The data doesn't match that. The previous Monster Hunter games did not drop this fast. They did not have this many performance issues, and no, not even World. Yes, World had issues. They did not have as many as this game did. And that's reported, right? From critics, from players, mass reports, negative reviews, people not wanting to play the game anymore because they couldn't play the game anymore, right? Like that kind of stuff, like, that's where it's kind of like, you realize what somebody really means when they're asking that question. Why make this video about this game is, I like this game, and I don't think it qualifies for my standards. Which, honestly, is perfectly valid and probably right, but pretty much irrelevant regarding my series about my criteria for why I make my or why I feature certain games. You know what I'm saying? Like that's another scenario where it's like, I don't give a fuck about your opinion. What? It's the series, and I made the series like 9 years ago. And then don't get me started on my favorite comment from the. One thing that people love to do online is they like to feign relevancy for whatever reason. I don't know. To feel better about themselves, I guess, or whatever. But people will say, my criticism isn't just criticism. It comes from me being a longtime viewer of the channel. To which I then respond with, okay, well, I never made the series to be only on literally dead games. So if you disagree that this game qualifies, disagree all you want. That's perfectly fine. But telling me it doesn't qualify, it's kind of silly when I'm the one that wrote the criteria. So if you're not even considering my own criteria, what are we just talking about? Just how you feel about it? I mean, that's fair, but I guess there's not really that much interesting discussion that comes from that. Probably not as interesting as you could have with your friends, to be honest. In MH4U, the morons are meant to be the morons. That's a hilarious name. The morons are meant to be big, large hunts you fight with a group. You literally fight one in the beginning of the game and repel it later, and fight it for real and need a group to fight it. Yeah, and there's also many special missions in M4U as well that literally tell you this is a very difficult mission, which I think is trying to tell you, hey, you need to play with other players. Which, look, I think the franchise is probably the best ORPG at doing that. right? And I know they didn't like start adding hunters that can actually help you in combat until like did World have those or is it only Rise? Can someone quote me on that? Did World have hunters that could help you in combat or were they just like gatherers like in the handheld versions? In FU back there was then Lao was notorious for needing a group because of how shitty the mechanics of the fight were. What's your gamer cred score? Let's compare. Honestly, mine's like really low in some aspects of like the general games, like the action games, the big blockbuster games. You guys will laugh at me not playing the majority of those games. Not gonna lie. But if I can sit here and talk about MMOs, online RPGs, and super nerdy RTS games that nobody ever played, then I think that's where my street gaming cred will come from. Hey, what's up, Big Z? Shabbat Shalom. You're not an otaku? My bad. Are there other terms? Is otaku a slur? Because I remember one time on stream I was saying something that people were memeing about, and then like somebody came in and was like, bro, that's a slur, and I was like, oh shit. Is otaku an actual slur? Or is that just like a meme? Japanese culture is when you can date your teacher. No, that's that meme, poorly disguised fantasies. Poorly disguised writer fantasies. Have you ever seen that meme? In Europe, we are way too familiar with Russian culture via online video games. Oh, yeah. I think I know what you mean. Ah, shit. I have a fucking Halls in my hand, and I almost fucking dropped it. It's one of the I don't know if you can see it, but it's like honey and lemon is good for your throat. Well, the electric sandwich, I think this is where I'll have to default to business sense. I don't think losing 98% of your audience and being considered a failure internally is hella healthy. Like, did you know that the lead producer of the project has considered it a failure and has said that during the financials? Did you also know during their most recent financials, Wilds is only mentioned in like 2 sentences. Meanwhile, even like Stories, the reboot or whatever the fuck, has a full paragraph. So like, I respect your opinion about how you feel about that, but if I default to like the business side of things, Monster Hunter Wilds was considered a failure by Capcom. So I look, shout out to you for being a diehard fan for not considering it a failure, but the series is not just about games enjoyment. It's about games enjoyment business, right? Those things are sorry, it looks like I was only left holding up two, but it was like that. Um, but games enjoyment and business, you have to have all of them for an online RPG or an online game, right? You can't just have like diehard fans because at some point the rest of the fans are going to leave, right? So like you have to be feeding them. The title updates, kind of did that, I think. But then it kind of goes back to my second point that I was going to say, like one of the other disputed points on my Monster Hunter video, which was interesting to me, was people debating the fact if Monster Hunter is a live service game. I hate every single one of you who doesn't think it's a live service game. I'm not even going to mince words about that. I'm just going to be honest with you. And here's the problem. I've been in this industry for ages. The first online RPG I ever played was in 2001. And one thing I've seen happen in this industry while I played very passive, mind you, I didn't have a platform back then. I was just a gamer. But I watched it all happen. After progressive DLCs, microtransactions started coming out, paid, costumes, you name it. I kept seeing the player base. This isn't pay to win. This isn't pay to win. This isn't live service. This isn't milking us. This isn't about making money. I've seen them say it for over 20 years. And something I've always realized about that is that part of the magic there is that if the developer doesn't do it very often or barely is doing it in this like obvious way, they can operate in this sense where they still operate within your goodwill while also still managing to make money off of you. That's all Capcom has done. They just took the live service model and just made it a little bit sexier. And it worked. And if it worked on you, there's still time to admit that. But I'm just saying, like, why would you admit that? I'm sorry, I don't understand that one. Does it benefit you or me as a gamer or consumer for me to argue that Monster Hunter isn't a live service franchise anymore? Not a single objective agreement or logical argument I can think of. Think about it. Does it make me have a better experience as a gamer or consumer if I believe that Monster Hunter isn't live service? No. The only thing it does is lower my expectations, which is essentially only a thing that people are essentially advocating for because they want you to lower your expectations because the game wasn't good enough. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you start to see how some of this stuff's connected, and you're like, wait, you don't think a game with live service updates, title updates, sorry, costumes, crossover DLCs, actual expansions that are announced ahead of time, like you know it's coming and you're waiting for an expansion to literally launch. You don't think that's a live service, bro? Like, can you see why I get annoyed at these people? And not just annoyed, I kind of hate them. Is that you're why this industry is so shit. It's why we have day one DLC. It's why we had the horse DLC push into so much more. It's why games have pay to win that then get argued away for not having pay to win. It's why loot boxes are in the majority of MMORPGs. I'm not blaming the one person for the one opinion, but I'm saying it's this overall prevailing opinion of like, well, let's downsize the business parts and make it sound a little bit sexier. It's not live service. Yeah. On what planet? It literally, by definition, is live service. And it almost has every form of paying in it besides a subscription. That's the only thing it's missing from an MMO. It's a subscription. Stop getting fucking conned by Capcom, guys. Come on, man. It's not a live service. Are you fucking kidding me? A man can use an anime PFP if he likes anime. That's all. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I shouldn't kink shame. Wait, you're white? I thought you were Asian, Nerds Slayer. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think I've ever had any of my friends call me Asian or think I was Asian. um, my best friend, Vietnamese born, the one that's playing Diablo with me. He's my king Asian. Um, my Asian king, you know what I'm saying? But not me. Him being my best friend didn't turn me Asian. I'm actually white Hispanic, whatever you prefer to call me. More of my blood is more white, but I grew up in a Mexican household. I'm Hispanic on my census. I'm Mexican American, if it matters to you. But the reason I said that I've never been called that is, I'll just be honest with you, and anyone who's ever played games with me knows this is true. I get called black like 95% of the time. Like, I don't know what it is, bro, but I dead ass get called black like 90% of the time I'm online. Obviously not on a fucking stream, but like it happens way too much. Zeth is an AI filter. I feel like it's debatable for MH because of MH DOS and PH or P third. And the game wildly popular in Japan was the first game. Yeah, well, so that's the thing is that I agree with you, Heracles. I do think you can still call them a relatively large success just based on their local success because their domestic success was incredible. I just get annoyed when people try to say that it's not a handheld series largely, when up until World, it sold overwhelmingly more on handheld. Like, I know people love Fujioka and stuff like that. Like, he gets a lot of praise, but like, that's just true. Like, elections versus like factions, because some franchises can be that way. But yeah, I saw some people get mad about that, and I was like, this is a largely handheld series. Like, is that new to people? I thought that that was like the thing that made Monster Hunter what it was. He sounds like he has an Indian accent. It's an God damn, I'm all over the map today. I'm Asian. I'm Indians more specifically. I'm gay. Like Des called me gay. I've seen Japanese motherfuckers on Twitter take this with a grain of salt. Call Monster Hunter the ball and gun game of Japan. Oh shit. Ooh shit. Des, what do you think of that one? I think that's a pretty good meme. I think it might be the ball and gun game of that country. Where everyone just says, shut up and play. Stop kneeling. No, I'm just kidding. My bad, Lil Crevo. Kimmy Jimmo, what's up? In Busy Slaying. I feel like my fucking hair looks like shit today, but I'll take anything, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, but you're seeing it from my perspective, especially after I've explained myself now, Heracles. Imagine if you're like a great sword player or someone who only played like more precision-based weapons. I could see why you would see what I said as stupid. So, I mean, I'll take it. People want to call my opinion on the early Monster Hunter games dumb. That's well within your right. That's, I mean, that's really what like I love about my channel is that like people have this strange idea you can't come here and speak your mind. That's the opposite. The only difference is that we have rules set in place, so it doesn't just devolve, I should say, to total like shittery. Like we don't have hate speech. If you're making like an actual like legit claim, it has to be sourced, right? Like saying, "Oh, doctors say da da da," that would have to be sourced. Saying, "I like this game because this," is just your opinion. Like I'll see some people come into the chat sometimes and say, "Oh, I read your rules. And, what a fucking loser. You have rules." And it's like, brother, have you noticed there's no rules about being mean to each other? There's no rules about even cussing or like insulting each other. I didn't write those rules in on purpose. Because yeah, my shit runs like an old forum. Which is, yeah, we have rules for discussion. But people get unhinged all the time. I think that's kind of what makes me me. Is that I grew up playing on the internet. Like, you know, as my life, essentially. Playing many online games, many thousands of hours, that it became part of my identity to be that gamer, to be that troll, and to be that person who ruthlessly pursues the things that I'm interested in. You know, mostly video games, martial arts, and history. But, so yeah, when I get really excited about something that I love to talk about, sometimes it doesn't come across the best way in text chat. I've had people in Discord say, dude, I thought you hated me. Dude, I thought you were angry at me. Dude, I thought you were a mean guy. Dude, I thought that. I've had those kinds of accusations my entire career of playing video games. And it's just because, again, my manner of speaking is just a little bit different. I'm confrontational and I'm funny about it. Like, meaning, if you want to get in the shit, I'll get in the shit right with you. And we can actually shake hands and be friends right after. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as we're able to, like, transition, right? To actually talking about, nope. Or we just make the agreement we're just gonna, have shittery. I'm down for the shits too because it's fun. But most importantly, I just like debating my ideas and debating things I think that are interesting. And so that's what I do. They don't understand you don't have as much hours to put in the game as them. Yeah, I mean, that's also true. Like, I'm actually playing Destiny 2 today because I want to, record as much footage as I can. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I might have to buy one of these expansions that give me like a fucking pre-created character because I don't actually know how long the level up is. And if I show people most of my game footage from me leveling up to max level, I know they're going to complain. They were doing that on the Monster Hunter video. And they do it on my videos all the time. They're like, wow, he just beat the campaign barely. And it's like, oh, my bad, bro. It's like, I wanted to have gameplay and I wanted to showcase some stuff, but sometimes I get it. People want to see more recent gameplay. So I've been trying to mix it these days. I try to include my gameplay in the earlier zones, earlier bosses, and then I try to show like the super like DLC boss stuff from other gameplay perspectives too. I think it's important to see that. So Heracles, that's actually funny. That was what my assessment was Charge Blade and Insect Glaive. Zero is the one that made this assessment. I think Des also mentioned it because they were like newer weapons. But when I played both of those weapons, I beat the bosses so unbelievably easy and faster than the other weapons. It blew my mind that somebody could play those weapons and think that the game wasn't spammy. But again, because maybe they didn't play Charge Blade, or maybe they didn't play Insect Glaive, to be fair. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people are more interested in Frontier, to be honest. But it seems like it's partly because it doesn't get talked about a lot, and its story is not as like kind of boring as Wilds in the sense not the actual game story, but like the story of like why it failed is a bit more kind of like interesting, I think. Frontier has helpers, Rise and Wilds. Okay. So Frontier was the first one. Yes, Madness. That's one of my favorite self-reporters. It's like the dude in Inglorious Bastards putting up the fucking three single. Um, you know, I just missed the series back when it used to just be about dead games and it'll have like 40 upvotes. And I'm thinking to myself, like, so 40 people just upvote complete nonsense? Because that's not true. I made the series. I can tell you. The sixth episode, thank you, Autism. I remember exactly what episode it was not on a literally dead game. And in the intro premise, I used to say something just to that effect because I felt like people were going to tell me, oh, but doesn't it say dead in the title of the series? I just didn't think they'd keep saying it 10 years later to the same feverish degree. But check this out. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. An attempt. God, my voice sounds horrible. You're gonna watch me
Death
cringe
of the Game
live.
is a series in which I, Nerd Slayer, take a look at games over the past years that were either a death of a franchise or even a company and attempt to speak about the history of said game, up until its ultimate demise. I want to show you guys the most objective experience I can, so I will refrain from wearing my nostalgia goggles. The criteria behind the game being
It's lagging because I'm streaming, my bad boys.
dead would be A, it's actually dead, B, it had a sudden mass exodus of players and never recovered, it's actually dead. B, it had a sudden mass exodus of players and never recovered.
So, can you tell me again how you've been watching the series for 9 years and you didn't know that? Like, it's so funny to hear that shit. When it's like literally in the videos. I used to script it in the video itself. But that one's funny for me. I don't mind the comment because it's a red herring, aka it's a fallacy in which somebody is essentially being like, hey, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I'm gonna kind of like come over here and like disrupt things. But it's just such a weird one when it's like, there's videos of me saying it, right? And they're my first episodes. You could tell with this fucking horrible ass quality.
Or C, the game never launched or the company dissolved. At the end of each of these videos, I hope you guys will have a better understanding of why and how the game in question failed. Perhaps knowing such can teach us a valuable lesson on the video game industry, or at least enough to keep us from throwing money at such games or companies in the future. In order to have a better understanding of the history of one.
So the reason if you're wondering why I stopped having it, it's because the monologue was actually pretty long, I'm not gonna lie. I probably could have cut it down a little bit, but the biggest complaint I would get about my scripting was about my monologue. People would always say, oh, it's so repetitive, the same thing over and over again. And I know that most TV shows can work that way, but I would get a lot of complaints about it. So maybe I responded to like knee jerky. But yeah, that's how it was when I first made the series. So it was always made this way. So if you ever see someone say otherwise, just laugh. Because they're literally just creating whatever headcanon they want. Damn, I didn't think about the Fapper blade. I don't think so, the electric sandwich. I also noticed that you dodged what I asked you earlier about the business thing, but I guess I understand why. Big Z with the shout out. You shall tell your children of this day. Hello. That complaint has been a thing since the third gen. When do we start calling updates and expansions as live service as an industry? That's honestly a good fucking question. Um, EA refers to SWTOR as a live service game, and I think they always did. Don't quote me on that. I haven't read their fucking 2011 financials in a while, but like maybe Card can quote me on that. But I believe in early, even promotional, like internal business media, EA was referring to SWTOR already as a live action or a live service game. But if I had to guess, I would say it's the 2010s. From the 2010s on, it started to become a thing because now I even see people say it retroactively with MMORPGs. But here's the thing, it fits. So I don't defend it. Why would I defend it? Like, because they often end up being bad games. That, I mean, if live service fits the shoe, then it fits the shoe. You know what I'm saying? So even MMORPGs that I played, Warhammer Online, was a live service game by the definition of what people are using it. You know what I'm saying? But I get what Ambisis is saying, which is that it did kind of like spring out of nowhere and suddenly became the thing that everybody was calling everything, which is kind of annoying. Wouldn't a subscription just be better? You'll have to tell me how that would look. Like it unlocks the title updates for you, then you get the expansion for free? Like Destiny? Not saying that's not how it works, but I'm saying like in Destiny, you would get like every expansion unlocked or some shit. Like, is that what you mean? Like freemium and other MMORPGs and MMORPGs? Yeah, Devil May Cry, Dragon's Dogma 2 have day one DLCs, have objectively better weapon DLCs, have in fact, Wilds had drama with this with one of its DLCs or costumes, I believe it was. Is Zero here? Maybe Zero can explain it better because I'm kind of butchering it because I didn't include it in the story because I know it's a big topic of discussion. That Monster Hunter Wilds had increased FPS whenever you like changed the costume on one of your cats or some shit like that. The one that does the advertisements. Um, but I actually heard that it was an accident. But even that, it's just that's Capcom. How they still have legions of people being or defending them, I don't even know. What is PFP? I don't know. I'm sure somebody in the chat knows that one. Do you guys remember the game Godfall? Anybody remember that game? It was a looter shooter game. Anybody remember that shit? It's a looter shooter game that ended up being able to be played offline. It distinctively called a live service game. Now, besides Godfall, there's another good example. What's that one that the developers of fuck that character 2B? What game is she from? Are they? I can't remember their gender. It's that guy from damn, why am I forgetting it? What does 2B come from? Oh, Nier Automata. Okay, my bad. What's that developer? Platinum Games. Remember Platinum Games? They came out with a game called sorry, I have to fucking scroll down because apparently it's so shit. I can't even fucking find it on here. Um, dude, I'm blanking on whatever the hell this game's called. Oh no, didn't Babylon's Fall? That was the one I was saying. My bad. I said Godfall was the always online game or whatever, but I think they made it offline. Babylon's Fall was a full live service game that could also be played single player. which also happens to be a Japanese game. So again, like what you'll notice is you'll find pretty much all the Japanese games work that way. It's like nothing new. A Japanese player hearing me say this, and trust me, I've spoken to a few of them, and they'll usually be like, "You're not saying anything like revolutionary," and I'm like, "I know." And they're like, "Okay, so why do you keep saying it?" I've had literal messages like this, and I'm like, "Well, part of the reason is because I feel like people don't recognize what your market is and the differences in that market." And obviously, usually I get some level of understanding after that, but like, yeah, I've straight up had Japanese fans, Korean fans, people like that come to me and be like, "Why do you spend so much time talking about like the differences in the markets?" Even they're asking me about it, like on the other side of the coin. But I explain, I'm like, well, it's because the other side of the market doesn't understand your market, so like they're just seeing it from their perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, even single player games that have updates and roadmaps and so on and so forth are considered live service too. Again, like I'm not trying to be the champion of live service or some shit. I hope that's not how this is looking because I'm spending so much time seeing which, pegs can fit in its box. But it's because that's what everyone's using in the business world now. Everyone in game development is calling it live service. So I guess like if a player doesn't recognize that, it doesn't necessarily matter like as a player in many ways, but as a consumer, it does, right? Because if you're constantly purchasing a game that's only good after you spend $110 versus just the 70, um, they've got you hooked live, and they're servicing you, right? No, seriously, that point about the ball and gamers in Japan, dude, Monster Hunter, bro, you almost make me regret putting out my video because I didn't include that shit. Like, that's a fucking amazing analogy. And I think had I outlined it from that perspective, it could have explained things a lot more. And the divide in the franchise, because there is a divide between the two main developers who make the games. Well, three, but even they don't feel the same way about this franchise. So yeah, I think that would have been such an interesting little like, hey, Destiny just finished downloading. Sweet. No, I saw it, Kimmy Jimmel. I just said it really quickly. I think I was in like rapid fire mode, my bad. Think when digital storefronts took precedent, physical mediums were more like traditional software releases. Patches took time. Live services like saying you have an agile organization. Yeah, and also, Micronaut, great point. It's also a live service is basically admitting that you went in already knowing you were releasing updates, right? At these times, at these intervals, boom, 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 boom. No change of plan. That was the big reason why Babylon's Fall failed. Is because people kept waiting for the next cycle of the update to come on the quarterly cycle that they had it on, and it was too slow. This is a common issue with Japanese online RPGs. They fail constantly because they take way too fucking long to implement their changes. And Wilds was no different, to be clear. Neither is Dragon's Dogma 2. Sadly. Both games made on the same engine, by the way. But which another fucking L on my video. I didn't mention that. And I should have mentioned that because there's so much crossover between those two games. So much so people want me to cover Dragon's Dogma 2 as well. And guess what? It's not online either. Strange how that works, right? Fun is very subjective. Fun is like the most subjective thing. I think the key with being like an ambassador of fun, which is honestly what I call myself when I'm doing consultancy, which I won't say what game, but there is a major online RPG, MMORPG that's coming out relatively soon that I'm consulting on. More details later, sort of thing. But is that like my job as like a consultant of fun is that fun comes in all shapes and forms. Ball and gun gamers, that's fun. You have to acknowledge that. Just like dress up costume gamers, aka Card, my lead moderator. Then you have the power gamers, the ones who like to test their skill, like Des. The ones who like to see if they're capable of accomplishing it, right? Then you have the people like me who are just there to meme. No, I'm just kidding, but you see what I'm saying? That's what my job is whenever I'm doing my consultancies. How can I describe layers of fun from every kind of player, right? So I have to be able to like disconnect myself, which is easy with my trauma and CPTSD, might I add. Oh, and the fact that I love role playing. I understand what you're saying, Le Micronaut, and I used to think the same way, and I think I still largely do think that way. I just don't know how much other people do because people won't trust that it's just going to be an expansion, or sorry, a subscription. They're going to think that it's going to be more. And can I argue against that? No. Well, I didn't cover World, to be fair, DA. And also, I think you very much know why I had trouble playing Wilds. I'll leave it at that. You've mentioned it in chat before. I had a lot of issues with them too. I'll put it that way. I think a online world having a expiration date is what's also causing some of this confusion. Like with what the electric sandwich says here, which thanks for providing some discussion, which is that they think because the game's not built for a long term, like meant to keep milking it sort of sense, obviously their words and they're being facetious for the sake of the conversation. They don't classify it as the same thing. I'm willing to acknowledge it's not the same level of a live service, but I think looking at it that way is a bit of a flawed reasoning, and I'll explain. Virtual worlds are supposed to end. They are supposed to terminate. The idea that we can keep them running forever is pretty much only a fantasy that's only succeeded for like a handful of games. And if we're talking about in the popular space, an even smaller handful, right? You see what I'm saying? So meaning that like we have this idea that these games are supposed to live forever because we treat them like worlds and we want our world to live forever. But technically, our world's not going to live forever either. You see what I'm saying? Like maybe we'll have like moved to other planets and blah 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 and other galaxies or some shit or whatever the fuck, but like our world's not going to last forever either. Worlds don't last forever, so they're not supposed to. I think virtual worlds, MMOs, or online RPGs are not supposed to get updates forever, and I think it's actually kind of delusional. Should they be maintained forever? I feel strongly about that, but I understand that the business there doesn't always make sense. So then relinquish it to the community, right? That's my argument. But I'm saying like, just because like the content live service has like an end date, I don't think that that's suddenly anymore. I think it's still a live service. But it's never only been dead games. Is kind of the point that I'm making. Is like, have we had spans where I covered a lot more dead games than other spans? Yeah. But oftentimes it's because I'm covering a lot more of the classic games that I played heavily, so I have like a lot more insight in them, or games that my friends did, so they have a lot of insight on them, people that I trust their opinions like very strongly on, because they're either really, really good gamers or developers. So it can, how I pick a game to cover, case, if you will, depends on so many things. It's just feels based. That's the thing that I'm the most feels based about. Sorry, I keep touching my beard because it's too fucking long. I need to share this shit, but it's too feels based for me. I'll pick based on whatever's popular. Maybe sometimes just going off of my nostalgia. Maybe sometimes going off of something that I think is interesting. Then choosing a story that I know that people think is interesting, right? Like Destiny. So it can kind of like shift and go. It's not. I'm not thinking, is this one really dead versus this one's actually dead? I'm not even thinking that at all. I'm just thinking like, does it qualify for the series? And what kind of like story am I telling with it? And then that kind of like becomes like the thing. I mean, I think people oftentimes forget when I'm doing my research for the series, I don't even have my conclusion confirmed yet. I can fully admit I've done 3 Death of a Games that I canceled. I've never mentioned this before. Maybe I should have. Which is that I've had 3 that I was doing, and I stopped doing them. Why? The game fucking blew up out of nowhere. That happened to me twice. And the other one was I just didn't feel like I could tell enough of the story that I wanted to tell. And that got me some criticism in the past before. Hell, and I just was like, I chickened out. So what I mean is that I never choose a game and I'm like, I know it's dead because I'm Nerd Slayer, or some shit. No, I choose a game and I'm like, well, this one seems like it's called dead, reported financially dead, maybe has lost a lot of cultural zeitgeist juice, if you will. Right? So like a combination of those things. Then I actually start the research and I try to see if my conclusion actually matches whatever I thought it was. So I don't even have my prognosis for what the death reasons are until I finish my research. Because why would I? I haven't even done research yet. I think that's a misunderstanding people have, is that I'm just like, here's my opinion, and boom, let me write it all out. It's like, no, I'm actually researching it and then trying to figure out what I think the biggest reasons are, which means it's not just my opinion. It's also things like the majority of gamers report this, or critics hated this, or the game sold really badly. You know what I'm saying? You think I should keep that? What does everybody else think? Can you guys tell me? What's your opinions? Let's start like a little poll. Like, do you think I should keep my little blurb in the beginning, where I talk about how the series was not about dead or not only dead games, it's also about games that are in the process of dying? Does anybody think I should keep? Because I do. I just don't have like the big blurb that I have now. What I say now is I cover dead or dying games. So for some reason, people see the series name and still only focus on the death part. So I'm actually going to disagree with you. I don't think it'll make a difference, because I already say that in my videos. I just forgot about that. That I always say dead or dying games. People won't accept the dying part if they feel emotionally attached to the game. Most of the time. Electric Sandwich. I hate that we're using you as an example, but you're kind of the ball and gun gamer meme. Like, Heracles, was it Heracles that said that shit? That shit was on point. Yeah, I was a baby. There isn't supposed to be a B. But the title still says dead. Headlines, brother. Definitions, brother. Read a book, brother. Read a dictionary, brother. Read a thesaurus, brother. Dead and death are two of the most explained and researched words in the world ever, of all history and time. You think they only have one definition? Like, think about that for a second. This is the two of the oldest and most researched words, and controversial words, still today. Do people actually think that dead only has one meaning? Like, I mean, that's where I'm like, okay, am I debating IQ and reading comprehension here? Or am I debating people who actually care about this topic? But the Electric Sandwich is not my own standards. The producer literally called the game a failure. Since you seem to be struggling with that concept, I'll pull it up on screen here for you. When people are in denial, doing that kind of stuff doesn't really change anything, but I still find it to be pretty entertaining. Anyway, check it out. In a candid interview, Capcom president Haruhiro Sugimoto addressed the elephant in the room: why the critically acclaimed Monster Hunter Wilds failed to meet companies' internal sales expectations. The primary culprit, according to Sugimoto, was that the game's quality, wasn't the game's quality, but its price tag, or more accurately, the high cost of entry for the entire ecosystem. Sugimoto would point out to the monumental success of World and say that it sold a staggering 28 million copies to date, and this is before it sold 11 million more after, 20 million more after Wilds got announced and came out, by the way, which is absurd. So this is not even the full sales. This full sales was like 40 something million, including the expansion. However, the financial landscape has drastically shifted. While World is now frequently discounted to a mere $9, Wilds launched at a premium price, a significant barrier for many potential hunters, particularly the younger demographic. Compounding the issue is the platform of choice. The game's core audience resides on PlayStation 5, a console whose own high cost further narrows the addressable market. Capcom's target audience, built on the accessible foundation of World, simply couldn't afford the jump to the new generation. This is his words, obviously. This analysis comes from, despite a launch that would be envy of most franchises, an impressive 10 million copies sold in the first month. Notably absent was Sugimoto's explanation was any mention of the widespread performance issues and optimization complaints that plagued the PC version at launch. Another point that this analysis doesn't make is that following the release, after selling 10 million copies, it only sold 1.5 million more, which was actually less than the Sunbreak expansion for World. So, like, the Electric Sandwich, I feel like you're just that kind of person who just doesn't like to admit when something's just their opinion. So, like, they like to have, like, spirited, like, academic discussions about something. But, That's the president, bro. Like, sorry. I'm sorry, bro. I know it hurts, but that's the president, man. My own standards. You almost got me with that one. No, that was the president. That was the president, man. But he was just kidding. Well, Sandwich, and if the expansion does result in a massive uptick of players, feel free to hop on Discord and say, see, told you so. Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that it's actually said in the video. In the video, I said, look, I'm only covering the base game here. If the expansion comes out and undoes everything that I said, of course I'm going to cover it. Why wouldn't I? Like, it's like a perfect situation for life of a game. A series that I don't get to do that much of, to be honest. Yeah, it would be great. Is The Witcher 3 live service? Definitely, at this point. I mean, it's got its third expansion announced. And I think it had a roadmap announced, like... Was it pre-launch or pre... No, I'm pretty sure it was post-launch. Oh, maybe I have a chance then, Heracles, because that's my problem. Maybe they'll remove it. That's a fucking annoying-ass fucking problem. Also, I'd love to actually have a convo about the business side, but you take like 10 minutes to respond, so I just started conversing with the chat. Fair enough, but I just mentioned the business, and I already mentioned the business in the video, so you could just watch the video. You know what I'm saying? The best arguments are presented there. Yeah, Lil Crivo, I was at the PAX panel. I was at two of the major PAX panels, the one in PAX East and the one at PAX Prime, including I literally met Daniel Erickson and all the original developers of the studio. At the pub, just like hanging out. And the business guy that they had there with them was like an EA guy. He was like a handler. He was saying live service. And that was in 2010 or 11, like the beginning of those years. So I mean, it's been like 16 years I've been hearing even MMOs being called live service games, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Destroyer. Ultimately, that it ends up kind of being a bit of a non-interesting story because the story is simple. The business aspects didn't make sense because they were trying to appeal to a large audience that they failed to appeal to. That can be interesting depending on your interpretation of the story. Wilds was a super interesting story for me personally. So ultimately, obviously, I want other people to find it interesting as well, but what's most important is that I find it interesting, and what I found interesting about it was the juxtaposition between the three developers, which nobody has ever mentioned as like a single point. Sadly, it's always the points that I want to talk about the most that nobody talks about, which is sad. But yeah, you have three different developers making three different games in the same series, and nobody thought that was going to eventually run into issues, including having parallel development. That seems to be the issue, and maybe I could have highlighted that more. Fair, but that part to me was actually very interesting about the story. But obviously, if you're just focused on the game and kind of like how it looks and how to fix it, like an almost like a science project or some shit like that, you're kind of just like, oh well, engine, and it kind of ends up being boring. You know, like when the engine's shit in something and it just doesn't function that well, most of the other conclusions from it are kind of boring. I think Frontiers is like the most anime of the Monster Hunter games. Some people hate it and some people love it. So it's like it depends on like your viewing of it. Okay, so Heracles is explaining it. The DLC checker thing was that if you had more paid DLC cosmetics, it would increase your FPS only when you were near the courier cat and not globally. It was checking what paid cosmetic DLCs you had and the process happening all the time in the background. I'm finally fucking catching up. Oh, I could see why Frontiers very problematic as well, because people are going to look at it and say, dude, it's a redoing of 2, and it kind of is sacrilegious in some ways. Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. Yes, Heracles, which is why I didn't cover it. I mean, it might have been funny to cover, and people would have laughed at it, but you can kind of tell that my intention is not to mislead people, because I could have used that as my fucking cover story, right? Like I'm sure many people made videos about Wilds talking about that. but it's a bug and it wasn't really that consequential. So I'm more autistically focused on what makes the game work and doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Lil Crev, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. That's me, bro. Anyone here in chat will tell you. Um, God, you guys are gonna fucking laugh at me, but my favorite thing to do in online RPGs is to loot. So when I play survival games, yeah, I love looting people, including murdering them, but mostly just breaking into their shit and taking it. What I realized in Rust when I first started playing is that every, weapon has a weakness to it. So I would take a bunch of swords and whack a door 200 times and break the door, get inside, and there would be so much loot in there. Or I would use 30 fire arrows. What was the other ones? Two of those hand fucking bottle grenades, whatever the fuck. I knew all the numbers. I used to interior wall people. So what that means is like you blow into their wall and look for their walls being misaligned. And if they were misaligned at certain vectors, you could hit the soft side, what's called the soft side. So I was the soft side degen. So I think it surprises people in chat here. You guys get too caught up into my detective persona of like who that guy is as a gamer, and it's like you should learn more about me as a gamer personally. You'll be kind of surprised that like in my Brighter Shores footage, I spent my majority of the time playing that boring ass game by just trolling in chat, and it was because the game's so fucking boring and slow. There's nothing you can do except chat. So I was just chatting it, and some people in chat were mentioning about it, like, oh, I didn't even know Nerd Slayer's like trolling like this. Like, that's all I used to do. I had no life, and I grew up playing these games. What do you think I was doing in chat? Fucking discussing the efficacies of the, you know what I'm saying? No, I was fucking trolling, right? But yeah, in survival games, unfortunately, my trollism activates with my autism and it turns me into a fucking horrible being where I just start inciting people, finding ways to get inside people's bases, jumping up on people's roofs and jumping into their base and then glitching myself out so I can loot my dead body. RimWorld comparing to Marathon, that's an interesting comparison. I mean, I think I kind of get what you're saying, but yes, Heracles, that's you hit the nail on the head. It's why I push back so much against MMORPG gamers. ORPG gamers accept that their games are going to come to an end most of the time, which is why them saying that it's not debating against me. I agree with you. It's more that MMORPG gamers think that their game's supposed to last forever. And while I think that that's like a very worthy endeavor as a community, business-wise, it's pretty much impossible. There's only a very few exceptions, and they happen to be like the two biggest games in the entire genre, Lineage and WoW. You know what I'm saying? I'm Taliban on preserving games. If I bring my own players, the game should let me host. Well, one of those games, DA, was Rainbow Six. This was obviously years ago, but it was kind of right before their big revival. And it's when you saw people in my comment section spamming, hey, you should do a life of a game. Hey, you should do a life of a game. Ironically, I was actually doing a death of a game. And they had this massive revival. And I think I said the other ironic part, sorry, lots of irony in this stream, is that one of my good friends that I met in SWTOR was the community manager of that game. So I have a weird connection to that game as well. What do I feel like is the biggest audience for Death of a Game? Nostalgia or cautionary tale? It's both. I know that sounds like a cop out, but it's both. It's nostalgia gets activated by people who both love and hate games, and cautionary tale is for the people that are more developer centric. So I'll tell you guys a secret. If you don't already follow my Discord, you probably don't know this stuff because I don't talk about it that much. Maybe on stream every now and then, but I hardly ever stream. Which is that like the most rewarding thing for me as a creator and as a designer consultant is to hear from game developers, experienced ones, all levels, small games, medium games, big famous games, when they're able to watch my videos and tell me, hey, I love this video. I love the analysis here. I love that you really focus on the design, or I love that you talk about the business. People don't talk about that enough. those kinds of comments, you guys don't get to see that stuff. You're not privy to that. When I'm getting, messages on Twitter or followed by serious developers and, very well known names in the video game space. Feel free to go check my shit if you want, like, to stalk that shit. But I don't feel like name dropping right now because it feels corny as fuck. But they also message me on Discord. And they send me messages, and a lot of the time what they tell me is that I like that your videos, compared to most, focus more on both the design and the business. And that's why I'm focused so much on that stuff. So yes, does my audience want me to focus sometimes more on the nostalgia or talk more about the positives of something? Yeah, actually, sometimes. But the audience that I'm making this for is broad. You see what I'm saying? I have the core audience who wants to see, why does this game die? But there's also developers that are trying to learn from this shit. And amateur developers, and just people who want to learn from it even if they're not developers, but they're just curious, right? That's probably my most interested audience. Like the audience that I'm like really like checking myself on the most, right? Followed by my core Nerd Slayer audience. The audience who consumes my shit, tells me when it's good or bad, tells me what they like about it or don't. I can go on, but many people that you've already seen in chat now, I'll just go through some quick ones. Magister, Des, Zero, Bacon Knight, Adric Lives, Focus Master, Box. I'm doing the ADHD, Bob. So I'm trying to look for the spicier names that we have in our Discord. The ones that usually will push back against me. Those are like the biggest examples, but I mean, there's more. Oh, Rippies. Rippies is a great one. Him and I have argued a lot, and we're really good friends. Yeah, I mean, there's probably some other ones I'm missing. Sorry, guys, if I forgot your name, but that's what I love the most about our Discord is that we just kind of, we don't have to worry about like the feelings being hurt as much. We can just like talk about whatever. But sometimes I forget, I fully admit this, that my YouTube audience is not that audience. That Discord audience is a fucking fraction of a fraction of a fraction, right? So sometimes I think that people are as comfortable with me like that, and then I kind of forget, oh, yeah. Like, for example, Des doesn't like that I troll in the comment section, but they're still a good friend of mine outside of that, because you can still be friends with someone you disagree with, right? Like, I mean, people call COD dead if the season's boring. Yeah, not even just the season, Tyler, because you're right. I also play COD. I'm a ball and gun gamer too, baby. No, I'm just kidding. But people will call COD dead if it launches within 3 months and doesn't get new content. Like, I see it all the time in the competitive audience, especially. Oh, did I say World? My bad, I meant Rise. But yeah, Sunbreak actually sold better. I know, Denji. And Denji, are you one of my Japanese players? Because I can't remember which one of you guys, because I have a couple of them in disguise. They don't just say, I'm Japanese, or their name is not Japanese letters, but I have a couple Japanese fans who give me responses just like Denji's response here, where they literally say, man, I'm crying. The Capcom soldiers are tearing you in the comments. Worst part is a few of them telling you that online is not the integral part of Monster Hunter, especially WoWs. I'm like, I know, man. I know, bro. It's all good. It's all good. Oh, was Rainbow Six the one that stole the trans girl art? I forgot. I should remember to remark about that. Hunting Horn is for online play. Wide range, a bunch of skills are for online play. Omega Set bonus is for online play. Events, quests, festivals. Yeah, and you're making the argument for me. I really appreciate that. I probably should have included those things to further strengthen my argument so people don't think it's just me saying my opinion. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I've said this before, I consider myself an expert in this industry. I'm paid as an expert by professionals. I've been testing both QA and, classic, alpha, beta testing as well, on many of these major titles in this industry. I feel like my knowledge and the amount of time I spent playing these games at 20 plus years also warrants being called an expert. But the beauty about me is that I don't let it just like be a word that I hide behind. No, we could talk about it. We can have these discussions. And anytime I've ever spoken to any of these people who are very angry about this stuff, Surprisingly, most of them end up having pretty like positive perspectives after, because they realize that we're just butting heads on things that maybe we didn't even think we were butting heads on, or it's just like the execution of how things came across. The whole tone policing thing that seems to drive people crazy about my content. Um, but yeah, like, just to be clear, like, that's the part you don't hear me echo all the time, because how cringe is it to hear from the guy who spent all his childhood playing fucking video games in the metaphorical basement and testing them because he couldn't afford them, telling you about how he's the expert because he had the world first level 40 and fucking SWTOR. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could say those kinds of things, but that'll just make me look like a fucking loser. And honestly, rightfully so, because I am. Because of the kind of shit that I found myself doing. And I spent too much time playing these games, guys. I'm not even joking about that. Like, I was in loser territory. But how I was able to like redirect my life into something that I ended up loving was that as I was working in construction, project management, working for a Fortune 500 company that worked in insulation, I sat there and I thought to myself, why don't I just apply this business shit that I'm learning and all the shit that I'm doing with project management, and I just apply it to all the fucking video games that I spent thousands of hours playing? Maybe I could even talk about them and break them down. Like, maybe somebody would give a fuck. I got super lucky in my first video with Star Wars Galaxies happened to blow up. The production is fucking horrible in those early videos, but my heart and soul are in those early videos. And that's because ultimately, I just want the industry to succeed. I want better games. I don't care if I'm only going to get my game. I want everyone to get their game, because the virtual world industry should be about everybody being able to get their game. And I know it's not like that yet, but that's my idealism. But yeah, like, I have to make the distinction sometimes about the whole, like, well, if we're going to talk about like opinion versus opinion, okay, then you can classify mine as expert opinion. You can still discard it, because just like a critic or a media journalist or a top chef, you could also discard their critique as well. Like, someone says you're not Michelin star ready, Marco Pierre White said go fuck yourself, right? Like, did he lose his expert like card because of that? No, obviously. So I understand that to a certain extent. I'm just a dude playing video games that you hear talk about stuff. You don't get to see all the other stuff and all the time that I spent pretty much mastering my craft, mastering testing, mastering playing these games. And ultimately, what took me the 9 years of my YouTube channel, mastering talking about them. Because I don't even think I've mastered it yet. I still am flubbing, chopping on my words, and that's just me. I think that's always going to just be authentically me, is that the voiceovers are never going to be perfect. I'm always going to have, or a little, like, you know what I'm saying, like a little me-ism, a weird slang, a weird pronunciation. I know some people say that they think that that means that I'm somehow using AI. First off, if I was using AI, why would I continuously allow the AI to make the same mistakes? At that point, I feel like I would just be a fucking idiot, right? Like, because wouldn't the point, if I was using AI, to be to, like, to increase how good it was? Why would my later videos somehow still sound the same as my earlier videos? And my flubs and pronunciations still sound the same? It's because I'm just not that good at grammar, my guys. It ain't that complex, man. You can be a genius and bad at grammar. IQ 138. Grammar score, lowest out of all of my SAT and ACT scores. I fully admit that. I'm a fucking retard when it comes to grammar. But you know what I kind of realized when I started playing so much games with like people from different languages and stuff? I realized that most people in the world don't give a fuck about grammar. And that's the beauty that I've kind of like lived on. Or fantasy, whatever you want to call it. Also, some event quests are locked if you're not online, by the way, LARPer. uh, LARPer is one of my favorite words, like, ever. I'm not gonna lie, it's like, it's such a fucking amazing word. Oh no, if you want to see me running around being a fucking menace or a nuisance, go look at me on Twitter or Reddit. My Reddit and Twitter are public. Gib is my Reddit, and NerdSlayerG is my Twitter. They're unhinged. I've never denied that. That's why it always surprises me when people hit me with the, I just didn't know Nerd Slayer could say bad words. It's like, I know you're only consuming me as the detective in S, and he doesn't curse pretty much ever. And he also doesn't really get too passionate about certain topics. But that's a character, my guys. I love that character. He's made me a living and I love him. You know, he's great. I love mystery. It's my favorite genre. That's not all of me. You guys have to have all of me, and I'll take all of you. Use your all your perfect imperfections. Something I forgot what the fucking. Cause I'll give you all of me, and you'll give me all of you. No, I'm just kidding. I watched my cousin play Marathon on stream, and it looks fucking amazing. I just don't think I'm gonna get into it. I'm not gonna lie. I know Destiny fans are gonna be mad at me for saying that because they want Marathon to work. Otherwise, there's nothing left. But I'm sorry, guys. I think Marathon's even more niche than Halo 2. Yeah, and that's the thing, Dingy, is that the people get confused with the whole I can play it solo, thinking that that means that when the designer built the game, they said, yeah, well, this game's actually going to be developed completely solo first. And then we're going to retroactively come back and somehow design the multiplayer without having to integrate it to the same campaign. It's like, it just it doesn't even make logical sense. And since I know how development works, I know that's not how it works. So sometimes when you know things that people don't know and you're a expert in an industry that is fucking so young, people are going to disregard your opinion and disregard things you say, thinking you're just saying stuff that you feel, just like they are. And that's kind of the problem with online discussion. This fucking dork is using LARPer unironically. I love LARPer. LARPer's hilarious. But calling the horn a support weapon, yikes. Oh shit, it's getting spicy. Yeah, it was Destroyer. It was Rainbow Six Siege was dying. I think for like the first 2 to 3 years. No, for real, Lamarck, and I appreciate your question because that's the thing is nostalgia is also people have like nostalgia hate. Like dude, go read the Star Wars Galaxy's comments. Oh my god, that shit's a fucking landmine. You'll see people saying, these fucking stupid fucks adding the Jedi. Oh my god, I was so angry. And I'm just like, alrighty. You know, like, oh no, Marathon's the one that stole from the trans girl. I'm a ball and gun gamer because I like games where trans girls can shoot and show their balls. Makes sense. Hello, Mr. Nerd Slayer. What's up, Dark Soda? Yeah, I mean, look, I'll admit that's the thing I'm the most arrogant about, the Micronaut, is I think that I'm smart enough to not have to have perfect grammar. You activated my ultimate trap card. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, my Reddit name is Gib. Shit. It's Gib, like the gift of Gib, and then Gab, like spelled normally, but like conjugated with 2 R's. So GIBGABBERR. Um, I'm mostly trolling, like, but I'll respond seriously sometimes to MMO stuff and martial arts stuff. But pretty much everything else, I'm just kind of like saying random shit. Like for example, um, my favorite forum to visit or subreddit or whatever is the Avowed subreddit, and it's because when games have really bad like receptions and sell really poorly, they'll still get a community behind them, of course. even if it's just 100, 200,000 players. Avowed still has a community. Because everybody else thought the game was bad and moved on, the players who liked the game will double down and talk about how much they love the game. And so whenever you go to that subreddit, bro, it's like some of the most delusional shit you'll ever see in your life. And it's because the only people there are the people who are delusional. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm sorry, but I just love trolling that fucking subreddit. I'm trying to find one of my trolls there. Okay, here's one. No, that was... Oh, no, here it goes. Damn it. I have old Reddit, so I have to scroll down. It's all fucking white screened. So it's like hard to fucking read. Yeah, somebody said, oh yeah, in this game, people always complain about the crime system. Who even cares about that sort of stuff? My response was, I like playing RPGs. And if you don't, maybe that's why we have some disagreement. You know, like obviously I'm fucking trolling, but that's the kind of like Avowed has anti-RPG mechanics in it, and people argue for it. Like so, like meaning you're not gonna go in there and be like, bro, but well, let's make it more RPG like. No, the fan base be like, the fuck, like it doesn't work that way. We don't care. Like that's my discussions on the Avowed subreddit essentially. For example, one time somebody said, "Oh man, I beat my game in 20 hours, or I beat it up in 20 hours." I responded and I said, "Damn, bro, I only beat it up in an hour, or I can beat it up a few times in an hour." And obviously, you know, was memed. People like it. It's funny. That's the kind of non-serious shit I'm doing most of my time when I'm not researching for the series or doing martial arts in real life. I like to have a pretty non-serious life. Yeah, surprisingly. I don't watch action movies. I don't give a fuck about any like horror movies. Anything that's spiking my cortisol. I'm actually good. I'll just watch a mystery, a romance, or a comedy, or a cooking show. Well, Gotcha took longer than I thought it was going to take to make its way into online RPGs and virtual worlds. But a loot box is essentially just, you know, gotcha, right? Like, but it's not the same ecosystem. Let me make that point. Don't worry, Monster Hunter pachinko machines. Check this out. Ow! Fucking hell. Also, somebody mentioned there was like someone that made a response video. No wonder why like the only people who came in and made their points all upvoted each other, refused to engage in actual discussion, and had largely anime PFPs. Like sometimes if you guys see stuff like that, like, is it possible I fucked up on a video and the video's ass? Yes. I would argue that the majority of my beginning ones are ass. Especially the ones that aren't Death of a Game. And even some of my side videos, you know, not so great. I could have done a better job with them. But then if you see like a coordinated like thing where it's like a bunch of people have like a dude has like a one post, no response, but it has like 60 upvotes. Stuff like that is not actually how discussions go on YouTube. Like that's called astroturfing. Like if something has 60 upvotes but not a single response on it, it was that worthy of something to read that you didn't even respond to it. It's just almost unlikely. It hardly, if ever, happens that you'll see something like that. My comment section will happen like that on StarCraft, Monster Hunter, and the reason being is because creators are covering my content and coming in and pointing their laser at a specific thing and then honing in people. That's why they make the same arguments, say the same things. I had a couple of people saying, "Oh, you don't even willing to like with the series here. And if I respond with, oh yeah, okay, this video, wow, what a try hard. What are you gonna respond to me? It's like, wait, I thought I was supposed to explain to you. Now I'm a loser for responding to you. The current state of internet affairs is in a horrible state. Socialization is sadly like only continuing to plummet. And now it's gotten to the point to where people can hit you with the, hey, something's gonna how would I say it? Wait, are you guys watching this shit? No wonder why people get addicted to this fucking shit. I'm getting addicted to it. No, I'm just kidding. Now I can't stop fucking staring at it. The production on this thing's fucking insane. Holy shit. Yeah, it makes sense. Those are audiences that would blindly essentially support the franchise without making any actual like credible arguments. You know what I'm saying? No, dude, dead ass, I literally just got fucking distracted from staring at this pachinko machine. What the fuck? This shit is so fucking like holy shit. I just learned in real time. Whoo! That was a fucking jolt of dopamine, am I right, guys? Or what? That shit was crazy. It's essentially like a game playing in the background. Like a monster fight, so you're playing Monster Hunter, and you're watching your guy like beat the monster as you're pressing like the gotcha button. No wonder why their gotcha machines have pachinko machines have made hundreds of millions. Holy shit. Dude, that deadass fully like derailed my brain. Like that's how powerful that shit is. God damn. So what were we fucking talking about? Oh, the Micronaut says online interaction actually worse than before. Did we lose hate speech and gain passive aggressiveness? I mean, that's a fair point. I'll put it this way. Echo chambers are more prominent these days. Card, I kind of stole this from one of our discussions earlier, but Card made this point to me, one of my top moderators. I think it's actually because echo chambers have bigger voices than they did before. For example, the Avowed subreddit, if you go there and say, dude, guys, I know this sounds really funny, but go there. I'm saying it's a fucking hilarious subreddit. You can see exactly the concepts I'm talking about. But you'll see somebody in there saying, hey man, how come this mechanic works this way? I'm not really a fan of it. And they'll get massively downvoted, even if it's their first post on the subreddit. And it cracks me up every time I read it. Because I'm like, think about it. This is like some fucking 38-year-old dad who just got the game for the first time and he doesn't even know what's wrong about it. And he's just like, Reddit people were talking about this shit. Let me fucking search this shit up. And he types it in. Oh yeah, man. What was wrong with it? It seems fine to me. Or I don't like the certain mechanic. Why does it work this way? Literally getting clowned in the comments. Oh, bro, that's about it. Like, man, you're still complaining about that? It's the guy's first time playing the game. That's the problem with how popular echo chambers have gotten. A subreddit for a video game is almost the most purest form of echo chamber you can have. Like, there's almost not even a more pure form of echo chamber. Think about it for a second. Who would blindly defend a game more than the people who would spend the time on Reddit talking about the game? It's not really for new players. Like I said, go to many of these subreddits that have very feverishly loyal fans. They'll shit on new players all the time because they don't give a fuck about them. That place is not for new players. That place is to echo chamber about things that you feel and kumbaya and shit. And that's kind of the problem I have with Reddit overall, is that it's essentially just become that. You can get banned on certain subreddits for having like a differing opinion and shit. Like, if you like a certain game over a certain other game, people will ban you from somewhere. I've been banned for, like I talked about this story before, but Sabrina Carpenter had that like title on her album cover where she's like acting like a dog. And people on the subreddit I was on, I was like, Famoy, I think is how you pronounce it. They were talking about like, oh, dude, this like is horrible. It's so sexism and sexist, and how could this happen? I said, but it's ad campaign she agreed to, which means she probably came up with the idea even. Like, what, who, like, this is like that meme where it's like, have you asked her for consent and him for consent, but did you ask me for consent? And I'm saying, like, it was that meme, and I got banned immediately because I literally just pointed out, hey, everybody consented here, man. Like, everything's good, bro. Like, banned immediately. It's like, oh, I'm evil for saying that people consented. Like, you see, and like, obviously, if I went through more effort to try to speak in some of these echo chambers, I'm sure I'd have more examples just like that, where you're getting banned for essentially you feel differently or massively downvoted because you said something that's true, but people don't like the way you said it, right? Like, that's what echo chambers create. It's not about facts. It's about how people feel, right? Yeah, honestly, that's a fucking great ass point, Lamarcanaut. Echo chambering is very real and cause of algos and search engines. It's almost like trying to catch up and play Dota. No, seriously, it's like you're so far behind in the information. Fuck, how does Arctic Monkey say? The information. Fuck, how did I say it? Oh, the information action ratio. That's what Arctic Monkeys calls it. The information action ratio is like this idea from Neil Postman's book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, which essentially talks about how because we have limitless amounts of information, we get so overwhelmed that we can't even do anything about it, nor do anything with most of the information. It's a really interesting book from Neil Postman. But anyway, yeah, it's called Amusing Ourselves to Death. That's the concept. It talks about that stuff. It talks about like the information action ratio, where it's like you're getting so flooded with information that you can't even act on it anymore. And I'll give you a great example of this. In my StarCraft 2 video, there was a lot of negative feedback being pushed on certain particular topics that I had raised, like the World Championships, stuff like that. Something I noticed, besides just, again, having literal videos and subreddits targeting my video and telling them, hey, go here and tell this guy's fucking ass. Like, and it's like, you could just find this stuff online. I don't need to tell a conspiracy. There's public Reddit threads about this shit. That what I found is that the angriest player at me, how do I put this? I categorized him, like the metaphorical him. It was a player who quit playing StarCraft, was still supporting the pro scene, and fully accepted and even like angrily denied that the game was incredibly, incredibly niche and super competitive to where it wouldn't be friendly to new players. They had all those three things in common. Mind you, maybe I'm off on some of these, but that was like the three recurring things I would see in the angriest StarCraft 2 fan in the comment section. So why are they so angry? Because they're still plugged into all the media. Do you see what the problem is? They're still following the streamers. They're still following the Reddit. They're still following the Twitter. They're keeping up with the pro scene. So they know all the memes, but they don't even fucking play the game anymore. You see what I'm saying? They don't even play the game anymore. So the largest audience that I was talking to about the game was the audience who wasn't even playing it anymore. So much of my discussions with that audience was honestly really fucking boring and just a waste of time. Because if you already have the perspective, like Darkfall fans, oh my god, Darkfall fans. Dessa, I don't know if you're still here, but you can back me up on this, but like Darkfall fans were the worst at this. Darkfall Online was a MMORPG that came out from a pretty unknown, like pretty much almost like Balkan/Eastern European company that was revolutionary for its point, for the time it came out back in like 2008 or 9. It was essentially like Quake, the MMO. You could fucking bunny hop, fly around the map, super combos, throw people up in the air, have them doing backflips and fucking spike them down, kill them in an instant. It was like the ultimate magical MMO fantasy. It fucking flopped horribly. Now, beside the fact that it had a minuscule budget and a super old spaghetti code engine, what was the other reason it failed? The fucking audience. The audience was horrible. I would read the shit they would say all the time. It would be like people saying stuff in chat. Someone would be like, "Hey, bro, How do you like? What's the safest way to get to this route over here? Oh, bro, shut the fuck up, stupid ass Care Bear. And I'm sitting in chat reading this, even as a PKer, and I'm just like, why are you acting this way to new players? Don't you want there to be new players joining the game? Like, and Darkfall was just, I mean, StarCraft might be worse. I'm not gonna lie. It has a much bigger audience, so that's probably just sheer numbers. But these two audiences, Darkfall and StarCraft, you know what? I might throw Titanfall in there too. These are some of the most delusional fan bases. They think that everyone can play their game to the same level that they can play their game because they played it for so many years and dedicated their life to playing it. In reality, the vast majority of regular gamers, the ball and gun gamers, play that shit and are like, what the fuck is this? When I was alpha testing StarCraft 2, I sold all my friends on buying it. I was one of the top salesmen for that game. Do you guys want to know how many of my friends kept playing the game? Out of like 15? 2. 2 people. Why? Because everyone else complained to me, dude, I make one mistake, I'm dead. That's not fun. Well, guess what? StarCraft 2's audience, especially at this point, has accepted that as fun. Does that make sense? That's not a debate for them anymore. No, it's been fun to do that. It's been fun to get drone rushed by me and Master Tier. That's why the comments were so angry. Not no, because I only have like 100, or I only have like 500 games, and I'm randomly in Master Tier because I cheesed all the 20,000 game bros. But anyway, that's a separate meme. um, what? Have you realized yet that you are the bad guy you always criticize? I'm the bad guy? I don't think I call anybody in my videos a bad guy. In fact, the only person I think that's like morally questionable in my videos that I've covered before, Leslie Benzies, who's currently being sued like 6 times. Richard Garriott, who got sued by his parent company, or twice, right? I think twice. Stephen Sharif, who I even referred to as being criminal-like. Those are like the only guys I've ever like called bad. So I'm not sure where you're getting like the moral grandstanding from, but that's not what I do on my channel. That's what like Jason Schreier and like the other YouTuber postmortem people kind of focus more on. Yeah, I'm more interested in the theory and the design. That's why I don't care if people call me an idiot if they're not willing to debate the design with me. Because if you're not willing to, you're the idiot. Because why are you even here? Like, what's the point? Just to say how you feel emotionally, discharge it, and then feel better about yourself? That's just a weird way to engage with someone else in a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Well, it is sports ball, unfortunately. And like, for example, with Monster Hunter, because Monster Hunter is far and away pretty much, besides Final Fantasy XIV, again, as a arguable first, is pretty much the de facto biggest ORPG. And so that creates a number of problems with it, right? When you're like the biggest in your industry, sometimes people almost don't even acknowledge your industry exists. They just think that everything's a Monster Hunter like. Haven't you guys heard that before? I've heard that. I've heard Western developers, media journalists say that all the time. What the fuck is a Monster Hunter like? You mean like an ORPG or an ARPG? Like, we don't have to make new words to refer to the same shit. No, I only made that comment about Schreier because honestly, I think Schreier's the best journalist in the space. Truthfully. But I don't necessarily think being the best journalist necessarily means that you're the most useful or useful to, like, parse person. And what I mean by that is this. I don't really think he plays games almost at all. Anytime he's ever talked to people about games, his knowledge of actual gaming and actually, like, having personal experiences seems like it's, like, incredibly low. So that's my main issue with Jason. I feel like he's the best journalist, but is he, like, the best gaming covering journalist? You know what I'm saying? Like, where it's like, also you have to consider his like actual gaming credentials. I think that that's relevant. This is one of the few fields that you have to actually walk the walk. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe like a journalist doesn't have to be a basketball player to ask LeBron James a question. But in gaming, I kind of feel like people expect you to play the games. And Jason just feels like a super casual gamer to me. So that's why I kind of just like I love his reporting, but I would never actually take anything he says from an analytical perspective. Because what is he basing it off of? Like trends and shit that he's watching, like that's useful, but that's more business stuff. Like games are also about being fun. Yep. Exactly why people created that Souls-like shit. I fucking hate that shit. Because guys, technically, if you look at the Elden Ring series, you can call it an ORPG as well. Right? Especially Night Rain. Night Rain is about the most ORPG you can get. Unless you just want to say, well, extraction shooters are just whenever you don't have a home world. Well, it's like, okay, I guess it's an extraction shooter. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, the Japanese market just works differently, guys. They're interested in different shit. And when that game came out, everyone poo-pooed it. The West was like, who gives a fuck about this kind of game? A lot of people. It's the ball and gun. It's the ball and gun game of the fucking East. That's fucking hilarious. Seriously, whoever came up with that, you're a genius. No, to be clear, I would trust again. Like I don't think anything I said is attacking his credibility in terms of what he reports on. But reporting on something and analyzing it, I hope people realize it's not the same thing. Like what Yang Ye does is not analysis. Maybe that's the problem that I'm at. Is I have to remind people what analysis is. Yang Ye is not analyzing anything. He's just reading a headline and telling you what happened. Jason Schreier is pretty much doing the same thing. He's reporting and telling you what happened. Analysis is when you're making things like, hey, well, this game could here with the here, and this game with the feature thing here. So, like Jason Schreier talking about budgets, that's analysis. That's business analysis. But, like, you see what I'm saying? He never talks about, like, gaming art or analysis from, like, the perspective of feature sets and stuff like that. And I think it's because he doesn't really play games. But anyway, that's just how I feel. Whenever he had a debate against Yang Ye was attacking him on his gaming credibility. Jason didn't even bother to debate him on it. He couldn't even like, here's my gaming rip sheet. No, he was just like, yeah, I play games. All right. If it's hard and has checkpoints, then it's Souls-like. Yep. If it's online, you can play with 3 players, and other players can play in the same world. It's an MMORPG. Checkmate. No, I'm just kidding. No. And the reason that we know that, Micronaut, is that the earliest looter shooters are all built from the ashes of ARPGs. I'm gonna do some storytelling for a second. But anybody ever remember the game Hellgate London? It was a Morpg or MOFS or MOFPS or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Anybody remember that game? Guess who Hellgate London had as the lead designer and lead producer? Like 2 different people. Remember, this game came out in 2007. You ready to see why paying attention to history and stuff like that's actually interesting and cool? And not about, like, gatekeeping or some shit or trying to tell someone they're stupid? The creator of Hellgate London is Bill Roper. Yeah. Um, One of, like, the lead creators of StarCraft and Diablo. No, a lot of people forget that, yeah, the looter shooters are a direct child of ARPGs. Just like PSO is a direct child of ARPGs. Just like Monster Hunter is a direct child of ARPGs. That's what they're born from. Guess who was the lead designer who was also on the project? Eric Schaefer. Guess who was the second lead designer? David Brevik. Literally, these are like three of the most famous like early Blizzard North developers. They are the guys behind Blizzard North. So yeah, looter shooters are irreversibly the same sort of thing, right? Yep. I actually watched that video and I'm not gonna lie, Madness, I couldn't finish it. That stuff is so cringe for me, bro. It hurts me because it's like because I'm the guy who wants things to be explained literally and correctly, I've somehow become like the evil guy. Like on this topic, I'm saying like people give me shit about it all the time. Oh, you're a purist. Oh, you're a gatekeeper. Oh, you're over the top. Or oh, you're this. I'm just trying to call the games the things that they're called. Is that if that's controversial, call me Mr. Controversy. Because I'm always going to defend that. Because if we let them call whatever they want an MMORPG, it has no meaning. It doesn't mean anything anymore. If Fortnite's an MMORPG, what's the meaning of the word? If Magic, the fucking Gathering Arena or whatever the fuck, or Legends, the 3-player game, is an MMORPG, then why did we ever even invent the term in the first place? Like, think about that for a second. Because obviously we had cooperative gaming in the 90s and 80s. So why did we somehow decide to invent a term that said massive in it? If we were just going to play with 4 players again. Like, it's just like the kind of stuff like this, when you work through this kind of stuff logically, it makes no sense at all. But that's because it's not really supposed to make sense. This is a genre that's used largely as a marketing term. My thing with Marathon Micronaut is just simply like, it's not a viable business plan. Like, I don't have that much more interesting to say about it because I actually like the base gameplay and I think it looks great. I don't think it's a viable business plan. And I think that that's pretty relevant when you're making an online game. Yeah, Madness, that shit's, it's hard for me because it's like, I'll talk to friends in real life who are like the most casual players you can imagine. Like, I had a real life conversation with my friend the other day. Um, Damn, he told me about a game called King's Quest or some shit like that. He said it's like an online an MMORPG that was just like WoW or just kind of like RuneScape where you could make you could craft stuff and make characters and like he was telling me about this. Again, my friends know briefly about what I do, but most of my friends aren't gamers. And he was telling me about it. And he's like, "Yeah, it was an MMORPG, just like RuneScape, and just like WoW." And I'm sitting there listening to this guy explain, and I'm just like, "Can you become a video game journalist, please? Because like, why is it that you know more than like video game journalism?" He correctly defined 3 MMORPGs to me, like immediately, and when I asked him for examples. And I'm like, this is a guy who doesn't fucking play the games and he knows. But it's because he's an intentional guy. He cares about how things work. So yeah, he noticed the patterns like, yeah, these are MMORPGs. Meanwhile, I can have fucking discussions with fucking critics or even developers sometimes, and they're sitting there telling me about, yeah, man, I was playing fucking Middle Earth, whatever that fucking spin-off action game was. What the fuck is that shit called? Not Shadow of War, the other one. It's old. Um it was like an online focused game. The Battle for No, that's the strategy game. Conquest. It was Conquest. I linked it. Lord of the Rings Conquest. I remember I was talking to somebody and he was like, yeah, man, my favorite MMO, Lord of the Rings Conquest. And I was like, what the fuck? I remember playing that as a demo, and it was like 5v5 or some shit. So yeah, I mean, you'll just hear whatever game inserted as long as you can play with other players, because the meaning of the word has just unfortunately been butchered and massacred. Because the people who use the word for its meaning are the people who profit off it. Us fans just happen to like the word because it's popular, not because correctly defines anything, because it doesn't. I guess I should show you some screenshots because it doesn't actually show you screenshots. But this is how like the game looked. It was a multiplayer game for sure, but it was just like a fighting game pretty much, where you could fight other people as like a hero, kind of like Dynasty Warriors, pretty much. Interesting game. But yeah, people sit there telling me, "Yeah, I love this." No, you said Lotro. It wasn't Lotro. They told me, "Oh, it's that Lord of the Rings MMO." I was like, "Lord of the Rings Online? Nope. Which one? Lord of the Rings Conquest? What the fuck?" Like 10 years truly changed like things so much that we don't even have standards anymore for what we call this shit. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. All right, guys. I think the stream's come to an end. I stayed longer than I wanted to, but to be honest, we had really good discussions today. Yes, there was a lot of shit posting, and yes, there was a lot of like some angry snipes that people came in and said some shit and then dipped, obviously, because most people that are angry about stuff because they get emotional about it, they're not actually interested in like stewing in it and talking about it, or they might have been told by somebody dumb that caring about things is lame and wanting to have them explained more is lame. You ever heard that growing up? I did all the time. I come from a poor neighborhood. ESL, Medicare, you name it, in my neighborhood. And people would literally make fun of you for reading books. Like, literally, they get mad at you for reading books. Wow, reading a book? I remember that. I'm like, that was my childhood. It's a bit weird to have still encountered that in the online space on a channel in a video comment section on your own channel. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like all these like specifics where it's like, huh. But I'll talk more about socialization some other time. You guys know I love talking about that. Peace.